The reason I wanted to be a teacher is because I really want students to become like their best selves. I had those teachers when I was growing up that really inspired me. The reason I want to be a teacher is to help others and to just really be able to educate students that really strive to learn and just need that extra help or just need the support and love that they might not get elsewhere.
The reason I wanted to be a teacher is the impact and the opportunity for them to change lives.
I want to be a teacher who impacts all of the young minds around me, and I want to be their safe zone, and I want to be a person who can give them advice and be a role model for each child that maybe doesn't have a role model. And I really just want to show students and young minds and little children that they mean something in the world.
Teaching in rural communities is probably one of the most rewarding experiences that anyone can ever be a part of. It's an innovative collection of great students, great possibilities, and if you want to make a mark on the world, this is your chance to make a mark on the world. And we define rural as if you think you're rural or you feel rural, you're rural. So it could be a district that has 20,000 students, it could be a district that has 8 students. But rural is how you feel. It's the context, the place, the space. It's a sense of belonging. It's a family. It's a community. We also know that when you lose a school in a community, a lot of times that community would go away. So consolidation had impacts on, taking schools out of small local communities. The school is the vital hub. The school is why people a lot of times stay in those areas. If you're wanting to solve issues in our society, rural school is a great place to start. It's a place that accepts change more than people realize, and it's also a place where the future leaders of our country are coming out of those schools. And we just feel like rural schools, it's the best environment to teach in, but also make the difference for a student that may need an extra push or nudge, but also it's your chance to give back because someone gave you a nudge and a push and helped you move forward.
Bluestem Schools encompasses 349 square miles. We're one of the largest districts land-wise in Butler County, but one of the smaller districts. So we're one of the larger 2As. We have a little over 500 kids here, but we're in a community of about 600 people. And we take up 3 or 4 other small farm communities that are unincorporated now. Over the last 10 years, our enrollment stayed pretty stable here, but what we've been trying to do more and more is grow our school to help grow our community. Because like most little towns, there's not much left here. They're all kind of, I don't want to say dying off, but in essence, it's kind of if the school went, there'd be nothing left of this town as well. The best thing about public ed is in smaller rural schools is the support system. All those smaller schools, those towns, when you go into it, you're pretty much automatically family. You're welcomed in. I still remember one of my districts, they said the first year it was welcome, your second year it was welcome back, and then your third year was welcome home. Every first year teacher in an interview always asks, do I get a mentor? And I always explain, technically you get a mentor, but in a little district, just go next door. Knock on the door of the next teacher, pick up the phone, call the principal. They'd be more than happy to help. So I go, in like our high school that has 25 teachers, yep, you got 24 other mentors. And so you have that support system. That's what I think would really keep more teachers in the profession, knowing that they're completely supportive. Even when it gets rough or it's a rough year, even in the last 2 years with the pandemic we've had, our teachers are very high spirits here because we're small enough to take care of our own. When I've lived in a larger community, I didn't even know my neighbors. Because there's so many things to do and everyone's got their own little area of work or their own group of friends. But in a small town, everyone knows everybody. And that's a good or bad thing. But from a teaching standpoint, the community supports the school supports the community, and that community is going to support those individual teachers. And so, especially where we have so many teachers leaving the profession after 5 years, the small town, I believe, really gives that support that they need. What we've really tried to do is focus on student interest. Even with all our class offerings, our electives will change from year to year, basically, because I really believe if there's an interest and that there's less discipline, the kids are excited to come to school. Previous high school principal was really interested in fishing and a lot of outdoor activities, and our SRO who ran SAD, same thing. And so they brought this to my attention, just asked, hey, could we do some type of fishing club? They'd seen it and heard about it. The one thing about little districts, if you've got an idea, your administration is going to listen. We have students that want to participate in this, so it's one more reason to get them to come to school. They get excited. It's one more way that an adult can interact with a student to build that relationship. And it's amazing, we had our first student get a scholarship for fishing, bass fishing. Between the fishing and the shooting now, in this community, there's a better chance those kids would get a scholarship for that than in athletics.
Well, on the fishing side, it's pretty neat. I mean, a lot of the kids, they fish the farm ponds to creeks. This gives them a chance to get out and see the bigger lake, how to fish that. We do have meetings where we teach them how to either fish a crankbait, how you fish a jig. We go kind of through the biology as far as where the fish will be at different times of the year, where you should fish for them. On the shooting side, a lot of the kids, they hunt, but they don't get to do the sporting plays. With the sporting plays they can do all year, even when there's not a hunting season. My one story I like to tell when we first started the trap team was pretty neat. We had a kid that he tried to do different sports and he didn't fit in. He wasn't coming to school. He got on the trap team. He actually was doing pretty good on the trap team. For the trap team and the fishing team, they have to keep the same grades that they do for any acacia sport. And the kid liked it so much he was coming to school, he was getting good grades, which gave him something to be a part of. And that trap team really helped him in school.
Growing up in a small community like this, you know everyone. You go through town, you ride your bikes, you play, and that is probably the most important thing about growing up in a small community. We know each other and we're close and we help each other. When I came to Leon, Hogue's owned the store. They had been in that grocery store building since 1933, and I came in 1982. I was in the store the night before it happened. They believe it was electrical near the register. And I heard the sirens, and I ran up the street, and there were flames everywhere. We lost our store. And it sat burnt for quite some time. And the school decided that they could possibly use it to better education. And I'm very excited about that. They are so successful, and it is so pleasant there, and they have what we need.
The Mercantile was a dream of Mr. Lovesea's, and I remember him speaking about 5 years ago, and he just kind of just popped it out there like, I want to start a grocery store. And it just resonated in my brain. I'm like, oh my goodness, well, this could be like magic for my kids. Like they could learn how to communicate with the customers. We could learn about math skills, counting back money. I said, this is the most perfect hands-on opportunity for our students.
We have to say, welcome to the Rooster Mercantile. If somebody comes in, we have to say, if you need any help, you can just ask and we'll be happy to help you. I like the Mercantile is I get go and check out people and like restock and get back change.
When I first met Leslie, I had a newborn and then I had a toddler, and it felt like Leslie's speech and my son's speech was like the same. Other people, if they weren't around him, could not understand him. I worked with a speech teacher. His speech teacher showed me the formation of the mouth and how it should work. And then I just said, you know, these customers are going to wait on you to figure out how to count back change. And we practiced when we were closed, and he is able to give the change back. Now, it might be a nickel at a time, counting back 95 cents with all nickels. Now he can count back change using the largest denominations, and it's just wonderful.
We have sodas, candy bars, honey buns, chips, like some household things.
I have had Leslie since 7th grade, and I want him to be successful. I want him to be able to just flourish in real life.
I started working at Morgantown and been pretty much fun ever since. It teaches us how to be adults in the real world. Like, we have to know how to handle money and how to count back, and we're working in Walmart or Denny's or Dollar General.
I don't know if there's any other small towns where you can combine education and a grocery store into the same atmosphere under the same roof. With small towns, there's kind of a few cornerstone businesses in each town. You have your school, you have your grocery store, and your banks. That's kind of your main ones that you need to look out for. And when you can combine the school and the grocery store into one, the fact that school has the foresight to kind of fulfill both of those needs is pretty amazing and innovative.
We just hit on March 2nd our 2-year anniversary. It's grossed over $200,000. $50,000 of that went back straight to student projects and clubs, and it's completely profitable, costs the district nothing. And it's been the greatest outreach ever now to the whole community because it touches all the people that have nothing to do with the school. So to have that in town is one more thing from a school side that I need to recruit and retain teachers here.
It seemed like years ago, a lot of people lived on a farm or a ranch, and nowadays they don't, and maybe grandma and grandpa does, but this gives them an active role in being involved in an ag community. Our community is involved with our school in a lot of ways. We sell our meat from the barn to the community. It's available at the store down there. Our 5th grade actually makes salsa, and we sell that down at the store. Our eggs from our chickens are farm fresh eggs down at the store, so we get involved that way. Our kids here, when they come play at the playground, they'll tell me on Monday morning, hey, I saw the goats doing this or the goats doing that, or there was a dog here and I ran that dog off because I think they were going to get it in the calves pen. It's their animals, it's their barn, it's their place. But the kids get ownership towards this, that this is their animals. Now, I'm going to have you guys go do that. We feed the animals rain, snow, no matter what, we take care of them. The therapeutic part of it being with animals is great for some kids that are having a stressful day. They can come out and be with them, and it's a breath of fresh air to them. Several kids, I've had their parents say the reason they come to school, oh, today's chore day, I've got to be there. And I think that work ethic is something that is built out here. And I'm really not trying to make all of these kids farmers and ranchers, but I want them to realize and appreciate what farmers and ranchers do for all of us. Whether it be low socioeconomic or higher end of it, kids are still the same. They need to know that we care for them, that they need to set goals for their careers. And if one way that we can motivate them is using ag, that's perfect.
3 years ago, we moved Barb McCaffrey out there full time. And so now that's one of our specials. So it's not a petting zoo. They're learning all about agriculture from basically the beginning to the end process. Over the last couple years, it's expanded more and more. We've got them a scale, a really industrial size scale they'd use with cattle and agriculture. They do the weighing, they calculate all the formulas on what they need to get them up to a certain weight and so on. And so it's very scientific. We teach almost more math and science, graphing skills, all of that is now taught out there. And the number of kids that they can't wait to come here every single day. And it really started out more than anything was just work ethic, chores. I mean, it was shoveling manure. It was raking hay, and the kids loved it. They would sign up on weekends, on Fridays, they'll come up and do chores with the teacher.
Rural schools are the best. You can develop relationships not only with your kids, but the parents. You know, you've had their brother, now you have the little sister. But it's just everybody knows everybody and is backing them up, supporting them. If there's a crisis in the community, man, people step up and help out. I wish everybody could go to a rural community school. Just the care that they get, the small teacher-student ratio. Like I said, it's a big family.
Honestly, one thing that might be lacking in rural education could be just a lack of teachers that are looking to teach in a rural area. You know, obviously for somebody to want to move somewhere, that small town is going to have to offer housing and some of those services. I think if we can kind of spread awareness for how unique and special of a situation teaching in rural towns can be, a lot of teachers might consider that as an option that might not have thought of that previously. Teaching and coaching, especially at smaller schools, they're not the most lucrative things. But I think the older I've gotten, the more I kind of realize it's the, did I make a difference for me? Did I make an impact today? Did I make a difference in a kid's life? Those kind of bigger picture things, the older you get, come more into focus. If there was one thing I'd tell somebody about small towns and small schools, if you're not considering it now, which I understand why a person might not consider it right away, but I would tell them to give it a chance. Give it a good hard look. I think if you do, you'll find a lot of special reasons and special people that might just make that move to a small town or a small school the best decision you can make as far as getting into education.
As much as you want to get out and teach your content, in the end of the day, those kids want to know you care about them. And you know, if they like you, they're going to learn. They're going to listen to you. And so just that relationship piece alone, I think it's so much easier in a smaller community to do it and in a smaller school. I still think back the 5 years when I taught in a small 1A in Western Kansas. I still have connections with those kids today. I've actually gotten to hire one of them as a teacher now. I look back, I think back 15, 20 years ago, I couldn't tell you many of the lessons I taught, but I could still remember all the interaction with those kids.
One of the most important issues today is who can be a successful teacher in a rural place. So it's one thing to say you just want to recruit teachers. It's something else to recruit people who understand what it means to teach in a rural place. Some of the key issues traditionally have been that if you're from an urban area and you've had access to a lot of resources and other amenities associated with urban, when you take a job in a rural place, it can be a pretty serious transition. So how prospective teachers gain experiences from student teaching or internships or through mentors or some kind of field-based experience to understand rural places is highly critical. Along with that is challenging some of the stereotypes that people from urban places may hear about rural places. There are benefits to teaching in a rural place. You typically, because there may be a small faculty, can make decisions a lot more quickly than having to go through multiple committees in urban places. So you can create a rural school initiative to provide some exceptional learning experience from students in a much shorter period of time. There are many issues currently being addressed that are important to the future of rural places, including schools working more closely with economic development, workforce development, the key kinds of issues that help the people from those rural places, young people particularly, see that there's opportunity there. Education alone is not going to solve many of the key challenges that affect the kids coming to school. So it's working with others, collaborating, achieving a collective impact for whatever the particular issue is, I think that offers tremendous promise in the future.
I'm probably one of the biggest cheerleaders for Goodland. You know, when I came back here and got my kids into the school system, it was a place for us where our kids could really grow and develop and really become the people and the leaders that they are now. You know, I had a group of leaders from Metro Kansas City and Wichita that had came here for an event a few months ago. And one of the questions they asked me was, you know, why do you live here? You know, it feels like there's nothing to do here. And I said, you know what, for me, it boils down to this sentiment, as I got a guy. And they said, what does that mean? I said, well, you know, right now, if your tire blew out on your car, I got a guy. I got a guy on my cell phone. I can pull my cell phone out right now and I can call a guy and he'll meet you down at the co-op and he'll fix your tire. He'll do it as a favor for me because he's known me, you know, ever since I was a little kid. I got a guy. In a small town, everybody knows everybody and everybody is willing to help each other out. That's why I live here.
So the community of Goodland's agricultural-based community in rural western Kansas. We're kind of the county seat and a regional hub. We have a growing technology sector. Our technology integration is top-notch. That has fed into a K-14 coding initiative where we introduce coding in its simplest form, even in a kindergarten level, and kind of carry that through all the way up through high school. This partnership with Kansas State on the robotics piece fit right in alignment with us. I was excited when that opportunity came about because the ability to allow someone from Manhattan 4.5 hours away to be live in our classroom and move about our classroom is exciting. Our kids have they've grown up in it, so it wasn't like, wow, what is this? It's really fostered some great dialogue. I mean, it's really a great use of technology to get people out to see what our classrooms, our teaching, our educators are doing.
So the life in Goodland, Kansas is good. And like I always tell people, you know, like I'm living the good life, you know, it's just kind of like a play on words, but you don't have time for kind of the fake friends or like the fake professional acquaintances you have at school because you all live in the same area. And so it really shows, you know, if you come in, you're super involved, you know, you coach, you do whatever, you find these groups that you naturally move into. When I came here 9 years ago, it was the same thing. I kind of found a group of kind of young professionals. And then, you know, 9 years later, hey, we all have kids. We all have like the play date stuff. And we've kind of grown up together. Like even though I'm not from here, I wasn't born in Goodland, I feel like I grew up in Goodland because I came here when I was 21, 22. And now I'm 30-ish. And, you know, family, house, whatever. This is kind of what I've known. And to me, there's no other place that can kind of give me that type of community, that type of family, that home away from home that I've gotten here. I grew up in the Kansas City area. I graduated high school from a town south of kind of the KC Metro, about 30 minutes, called Spring Hill, Kansas. And then I went out to Western Kansas. And part of that move was I started kind of getting these job offers from schools in that area. And then I got a job offer out to Goodland. So I actually drove all the way out here just to kind of see what it was about. And I just realized that it was a lot more freeing as a teacher, especially coming out of college. And there's just more opportunities. There's opportunities to coach right away. That's one thing that I think kind of drew me out west a little bit, kind of get out of my comfort zone, but then kind of prove to myself that I was a really good teacher. And I didn't need anyone else to tell me that. And Goodland gave me that opportunity. And I think it pushes the boundaries. You're out here on your own, right? You know, you make friends on your own, and very similar to like that freshman year of college, right? Some people just go to college because they go with their friends, and then some people like to take that leap of no one else I know is kind of here, and you make a name for yourself. You find groups that you're familiar with, and you go from there. And teaching in Western Kansas is the same type of thing. You know, if you're really into the community involvement or your church, like there's still those same opportunities out here. Goodland in particular is very cool because we are 2.5 hours away from Denver. So there may or may not be a group of us that, especially teachers, the cost of living here is nothing compared to the big city. So we will save up a couple months, and then we would go to Denver and we just fly to Vegas on a weekend. You know, if you're a teacher in Overland Park or Shawnee Mission, that's great, but how many Chiefs games and Royals games are you really going to? You know, it's not like you're a teacher and you all of a sudden want to get season tickets to everything and go do that. You know, we have plenty of staff here that have tickets to the Broncos or to the Nuggets game. The biggest benefit for me too was, hey, I get to save so much more money living here and then going these other places than that cost of living in a bigger city. Coming from the Kansas City area, I know that that's a big leap, but that definitely isn't the main kind of takeaway from moving out to Western Kansas. The community is the best part. And if you are a person that enjoys that school pride, when you're randomly at Walmart trying to sneak like a bowl of ice cream because you had a bad day, and you see your 3 kids at Walmart, like, oh, hey, what's up, Mr. Holland? Hey, how's it going? You know, oh man, that game was crazy, right? Then all that stuff kind of makes up for it.
I think the challenge for us on the teacher recruitment front comes down to breaking the stereotype a little bit. I think sometimes what a young new teacher's looking for in the sense of, well, wow, Goodland's way out there, or where's that at, or I want to stay connected to an urban area, is our biggest challenge, kind of break maybe what they perceive us as. And I think in this profession of teaching, it just seems like that has waned a little bit through the years. Other things have been created more value when the profession and the art of teaching is one of the best things anybody can do to give back. And I think because of that, in a place like Goodland, in small rural communities, that creates a great sense of value for a teacher to know that they're making a difference.
Unlike other districts where you have 2 math positions for junior high and there's 30 applicants, for us, even just getting a college student to come out and trust us that, hey, you will be a great teacher and we will help you along the way, because we can pull resources in that some other districts can't, because you will be the only new person in junior high English or high school math, whatever it is. We have a huge faculty around you that can help build you up, and you never feel like you're on an island by yourself. It's tough for a college student to jump right in, fresh out of college, 21, 22, into a big district, and then all of a sudden be the head musical person or be the head coach. And we've had plenty of those opportunities in these Western Kansas schools where they're hiring people and then a coaching job comes with it. If you're going to be a good teacher, then you can't just leave your building at 3 o'clock and then magically assume that everyone is going to know who you are. You have to be involved somehow, and that really shines through here. Pace of life here is slower, but that doesn't mean that it's boring. You can make genuine connections with people because there is no agenda, right? You're all here on this Western Kansas town island together. No matter what type of person you are, there's always a home for you out here in Western Kansas and in rural schools for sure.
Rural life in general is unique. I think in some ways it's misrepresented that we don't have resources or we don't have things to do in rural communities, and I would like to counter that it's just the opposite. I feel like we are so busy in a rural community with community events and organizations, and really everybody rallies around the school and the events in our school. We have wonderful parks and recreation, yet we still have access to really anything we need. When you teach in a small town, you are interacting with the student, you can make an impact there, but then you also get to know families and connections outside of the school, and that just really builds a strong foundation for everybody. It's just goes back to it's just a really special place. You might be alarmed at first of how many people know you already because of your association with a school, but there's also a little bit of comfort in that, knowing that people care about you, that they want you to be successful. I feel like at the end of the day, kids are kids, and you work with the kids that you have and the circumstances that they bring to the table. It's just about really working with kids, impacting them in the ways that make a difference for them. If your intent is really to make a difference with kids, you can do that anywhere.
We may not have all the big city life that some of those younger kids may be looking for, but as far as the education and being in a classroom, I think we have the opportunity to give those kids everything, if not more, than what they have in those bigger cities. An example in our building, we have the opportunity to still reach out and take virtual field trips on our iPads. We're not just trapped in this little bitty I say some people may think it's a one-room schoolhouse being out here in the middle of nowhere. We have huge opportunities. Small classroom sizes is a huge, huge benefit. Great opportunity to get to know those kids on a personal basis. It's a great opportunity for teachers to come out and be able to do different things in a classroom where you don't have maybe up to 30 kids in there, where it's very difficult to manage that at times. Rural communities are great places to raise families, and to be able to have great teachers in those communities, we still need that. In my 5 years of being a principal, we've had to replace more teachers due to retirement than teachers just leaving. That's a good problem to have because those teachers have stayed here that long.
In smaller rural schools, in particular, you get to know your students on a different level than you do when you're working at a larger school district. You get to know more about the lives of the students. You know some of the struggles they're dealing with outside of the classroom that may impact what's happening in the classroom. And I think that allows you as an educator to be able to tailor the work and tailor the relationships and the contact you have with those students. And it provides kind of a deeper understanding of what's going on. All of those kinds of contextual details about the life of the students we get the opportunity to educate help us to be better educators for our students. And I think it really empowers our teachers to get involved with students. And I think that's a good thing. It's a great thing for outcomes. And you tend to see rural schools being very successful and students from rural schools being very successful. And I think that's because of that personal attention. So some of the challenges that you tend to see in rural life, especially if you're younger, tend to be the nightlife and things to do. I think a lot of that, again, comes back to rural living is all about you get what you put into it. Yeah, as I talk with our faculty when we hire them, we tell them all the time, you know, this experience here being in Goodland, being in a rural community, is only going to be as good as the effort that you put into making it. Because if they'll plug in and they'll connect and they'll get to know some of the community members, there's a surprising amount of things to do in the evenings around a small town. You know, Kansas has always had kind of this notoriety of being a flyover state or a drive-through state. And you get out into western Kansas, it is from the highway, from Interstate 70, it looks flat. But I tell people all the time, you've got to get off the highway. If you get off the highway, there are some amazing things to see. But the big thing, again, with rural life is it's going to be as enjoyable as you make it. And sometimes you have to get off the road to find the beautiful things. I'll tell you this, you can't beat the sunsets out here. Sunrises and sunsets are absolutely gorgeous. You can see for 30 miles when a storm's coming in. I mean, it's beautiful.
I think some of the successes of rural schools is rural schools are really places for innovation. And so they're really trying out a lot of new ideas, new technology, changing structures, and trying to see what's most successful for their students and their community. And they're able to do that with smaller school sizes for many of them. And so I think we're going to see a lot of innovation coming out of rural schools in the next 10 years. I think Goodland and Bluestem are really good examples of schools and communities and school leaders that have decided to be innovative and find ways to really make the most of the resources in their community. The Rural Education Center at Kansas State is focused on equity and making rural schools more equitable, you know, making sure that they have the resources and things that they need to be successful, just like all the other schools in the state. Something that's hitting all schools is teacher shortages, and that's hitting rural schools especially hard. So that's one big challenge that we're constantly dealing with is helping rural schools train and provide resources to the teachers that they have and help them find some other teachers. I think as soon as you say that label rural, people think of whatever conception they have of rural, right? And that could be, you know, where their cousins grew up or where their grandparents were from, or what town they stopped in one time along I-70 or, you know, whatever. And I think that's accurate in some ways. We can't really characterize rural as this one kind of static thing. And I think that's a diversity of rural communities that people overlook. And I think that's what makes them really special.
USD 379 is a county-wide school district and a rather large county, 632 square miles, so we cover a lot of geographical area. We have 5 student attendance centers. Something unique about our school district is we do have 2 high schools, and so we have a K-12 school that sits in the southern part of the county.
So I think starting off my career as a city teacher and growing up in the city and moving to Clay Center after I got married was kind of a big shift for me. I was unsure of what to expect, what it would feel like, how class sizes would be. And the second I walked into Clay Center, I fell in love with the town, with the community. Walking into the grocery store for the first time in the summer before school started, I was so welcomed. People were calling me by name and were excited for me to move here. And I think that's what started off the excitement of being in a rural community, is you're aware of how important your community is. The buy-in, the support, the love that you feel from not just your students and peers, but from the community in general is huge and something that is so invaluable as an educator that you don't see often.
And get this, everyone. He's not willing to hook me up with a spacesuit. Everybody say bummer. Bummer.
I got into teaching to form strong relationships. I think education is important, teaching children is important. Those life skills are valuable, but the relationships and the connections that you make with students and learners are what last a lifetime.
It's so much easier to connect with people when you're in a small environment and to build those relationships. And what it goes back to is in education, we preach that it's always about relationship, 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 which is amazing to have those relationships with students, but we also have to have those relationships with families and the community to really help our students be successful. And I think even as an educator, you get to be involved in everything. And yeah, it may seem like very stressful, but your connections with kids are going to be so much greater in a small town compared to a large town, because you get to be part of every aspect of their life. Not only are you going to be with them at school, but you get to be with them in extracurricular activities. You're going to be with them just everywhere, and you're going to be involved in the community. It's a lifestyle. It's not a job. Like, it's literally your lifestyle when you live in a small town.
In an urban school, your relationships and your connections are strong and valuable with your students, but at 4 o'clock, you walk away and you're driving 40 minutes to your house. You're probably living in another community than where you work. Whereas here, most of the people work and serve in the same community that they live in. And I think there's a big ownership piece in that of making your community shine and matter, because you don't only live here, you work here and you serve the students. I think a lot of people go to the big city to make big changes, but we need big changes and we need powerful teachers in our rural communities as well. We do have drug use, we do have things that occur in small towns just like they do in big cities, but we don't have the same resources here that they do in big cities. And so our teachers, our paras, our librarians, our admins, they're the ones that make the big difference at the younger ages, helping those students find ways to get out of that poverty. So bringing teachers in who are excitable and ready to make a difference, they can make just as big of a difference here as they could anywhere else. The community piece, I think, is the biggest up for me. I have never felt more supported as a teacher in a time where teachers don't feel supported. I know there are a lot of teachers leaving teaching right now because it is a hard job, and there are times that it's really unpleasant, but if you find a community that wraps you up and supports you, then I think it makes everything even better.
So I don't feel like it's difficult for us to retain rural educators, because I feel like if they come and if they are a part of our community, that connection's made, and I feel like once they're here, they realize what a great district that we have. I think the harder part is getting them here, especially young people who are not used to a rural setting, or maybe just not used to Clay Center or Wakefield. People only know what they've been around, right? So obviously there's more people who have been in urban settings than have been in rural settings in education, just because of sheer numbers. So you have kids that have been in Kansas City and Wichita, and so they may say, I don't know anything about this community. I don't think that I want to go to more of a smaller setting, when they don't see the positives of it.
Yeah, like
If you give yourself the opportunity to buy into a community, you will be shocked at how much you love it, and that it won't feel like a sacrifice, because your community will wrap you up and welcome you so fiercely that it will be worth any worries that you had or sacrifices you felt like you were giving up moving here. I would say the hardest part about any job is it being new and the change that comes along with it. And the culture and the location is a big piece of it. When I moved here, I was married 2 months to my husband. He's from here. And I came from Kansas City, and I did not have people who would just walk in my front door at any time. And moving here at Clay Center, you know, family, friends, neighbors would just knock and come right in. And that was a big shock and shift for me. But I gave myself the opportunity to just completely buy in, and I will never go back. Everywhere in Kansas, regardless of where you are, even Western Kansas, there are big cities still within driving distance. That's the best part of Kansas. And so on the weekend, if you need to, you have that opportunity to go to a mall, go to a restaurant, go to a movie, reset, reconnect to that city life if that's what you're missing, or take the opportunity to drive home. Sometimes as teachers, we need to regulate on the weekends. And so connect with your family, your old friends, go back home for the weekend, and then return and be reset and ready to meet those rural students at the door.
A lot of our kids in Clay Center have never left Clay Center, so they don't know what's outside of the community boundaries. And so sometimes what's difficult working in a rural community is that we don't have access to lots of different opportunities. What's nice about working in a small school is you not only do you know all the families, but you know all of the teachers. Like I work here in the middle school, but I have relationships with teachers at the high school. When you're in a smaller district, you get to know everybody. And I would say that it's more like a family feel than just I come to work, I do my job, and I leave.
So I think one of the things maybe that people don't realize in a rural setting is just the relationships that you build with people. And that's not to say that doesn't happen in an urban setting, but there's so many kids, especially at the secondary level, where you will teach them that day and then you will see them on the basketball court, or you'll see them performing in the one-act play, or you'll see them in the band. So you have the same amount of opportunities, but you have fewer kids there to do it, and so you'll see a lot of kids doing multiple things. Same thing as a teacher, you'll get a chance, if you want to be involved in all kinds of things in education. And again, in my opinion, it's the experiences outside of the classroom that really benefit you as an educator. That you get a chance to see those kids and make those connections and those relationships, because if you just see them in the classroom and you see them only as students, you're not going to be able to see them as the real person that they are. And the same thing for the students with a teacher. It's nice to be able to see them outside of that classroom setting and help them develop those relationships with them.
What I love about this school is the teachers and the adults in the building truly care. I have counselor friends who work all across the state. You know, I tell them just different things, and my story is so much different than their story. Like, sometimes it seems like they feel like they're just a number in that school and just doing their job. And being young and being in rural education, I've explored the opportunity to go to a bigger city. I've interviewed in school districts like that, and it's just like I come back here and I'm like, there's just nothing that can replace this. No amount of money is ever going to replace this feeling, like the feeling that I get when I work in this school district.
Personally, I've had the opportunity in my educational career to work in a school district with over 20,000 kids, so that large size, medium size, 6,000 to 7,000, and now in a rural setting, 1,300. And I think every school setting has something to offer, but after working in all three settings, there's no doubt that I believe that the rural setting offers so much more and so many things that a larger school setting cannot offer. In a rural school setting, the schools are the epicenter of the community, and the community rallies around every teacher, student, staff member. Because of the intimate, smaller school setting, they develop these strong relationships with their peers, with their teachers. And if you think about where do you spend the most amount of your time, wherever you choose to live or work, it's at work. And the relationships that you build and make and have within your work setting, in my opinion, are the most important. When you choose to work in a rural school setting, you're not going to just have your grade level or content area behind you. You're going to have your whole community behind you and the support of the entire community.
and there's not very many K-12 schools in the state of Kansas. We try to capitalize on that by leveraging our relationships that we can make with a kid in kindergarten and following that kid sometimes all the way until they're seniors. And we use proximity of grade levels to mentor with our high school kids and our elementary kids. Once a teacher makes the decision to come to Wakefield or Clay County and experience the small town life, that usually it's hard for them to leave.
To me, what makes Wakefield great is the school itself and just the size of the town. The school here, it's a K-12 building. You get to watch the kid grow up. I have kids in my classroom and kindergarten learning the Hokey Pokey and songs like that, and then I get to shake their hands at graduation when they cross the stage and get their diploma. And so you get to help them and watch them, and it's a family here. And we've had several kids come in from bigger schools and make the comment, oh my word, you know, people know my name when I walk down the hall. They know who I am, they know my family. And so just that interaction and to watch the kids grow up. The benefit of teaching rural, I think one, we get to know the kids really, really well. There's a lot of one-on-one time. We're in the middle of parent-teacher conferences right now, and that's been one of the comments some of our kids has made. We have a girl who just came to us in October from a big place, and she said she's still amazed at how welcoming it was here and how many people just were very comfortable. She feels comfortable here. And in watching her, to me, that's a prime example of what we can offer, you know, kids, just that safe place.
You know, it's all about what makes a place important to somebody, and, you know, relationships and just the way of life, I think, are two things that make a rural school stick out as opposed to a bigger city urban school.
I think part of education, the nice thing is that there's such a broad range of things that you can do, and don't be afraid to try. Like, you can try it for a year. If it doesn't work out, there's going to be other possibilities. You're going to learn more in your first year of teaching. Whatever kind of experience you're going to do, you're going to learn so much from it, and you're going to finish that year and you're going to be so glad that you did it, because it's going to test you and it's going to make you find things within you that you didn't know that you had.
I know that nothing can be equal, and I am just fine with that. That makes sense as a teacher. Fair is not even necessary either, but we do want to make sure that our rural students are having the same level of opportunities as our students are in the big cities, because our students are competing for those same jobs and roles and passions and sports teams as our students in the big cities. We don't have the money to create CAPS programs and 21st century buildings, but we do have the opportunities to allow them 21st century skills and opportunities by exposing them to new learning. Us as teachers and our school districts in the rural areas to make sure that our learners are impacted in the same exact way as our learners in the city, and that even though the opportunities are going to be different, they can be leveled and matched in the same way. And so I think that's one of my biggest passions, is making sure our students are advocated for in the rural areas, because they matter, and we are a large chunk of Kansas, our rural students, and so we need to make sure all of their needs are supported in the same exact way as our big city friends.